What's up, meta nerds? Welcome back to part 2 of the Chadra-Fan species. In part 1, we went over their complicated biology and the unique structure of their society. But now I want to talk about the Chadra-Fan that left their close-knit community at home and traveled the galaxy. It's important to know that Chadra-Fan are respected for having very sharp minds, resulting in witty comebacks and a love of tinkering. When they came across some new machinery, they would often disassemble something and make a totally new thing from the pieces. And these small creations became beloved pieces of art to people all around the galaxy. Of course, their minds were used for things other than just arts and crafts, and those living outside of their moon, Chandra, often were employed in the realm of industrial research. They would create new and innovative technologies by creating novel ways to solve a problem just by tinkering around with something, and then more conventional engineers would try their best to duplicate the inventions. They oftentimes built one-offs, but through working with these other engineers, they were often capable of turning a Chadra-Fan's work into a machine that could be mass-produced. Once people realized their technical prowess, they became more involved with other species, but one of the very first barriers they experienced was that it was very hard to communicate with them. The Chadra-Fan are a very excited and talkative species, but actual communication with them is tough because their language is extremely complicated, as you have to be able to articulate different tones and have the ability to interpret pheromones. Because remember, pheromones are one of the most important ways to convey shades of meaning and different feelings. Differences in pitch affected the language greatly, and Chadra-Fans that were tone deaf were basically handicapped in the area of communication, being unable to actually render what other people were saying. When these tone deaf Chadra-Fan tried to talk, their conversations were often incoherent. Style wasn't a very important thing back home on Chadra, and even though Chadra-Fan are often depicted wearing clothes, this is just a result of them trying to fit in. Before the Galactic Civil War, almost all Chadra-Fan would just walk around naked, much like the Wookiees. They're covered in fur, so it's not like there was anything too offensive to see. But still, when they went outside, their small, hairy bodies would attract way too much attention from bystanders, who would ask them all kinds of annoying and probing questions. In order not to be bothered so much by others, they started to wear clothing, and were said to have a particular affinity for elaborate robes. Because I guess if you're not allowed to walk around naked, you might as well walk around in style. Due to the Chadra-Fan's tight-knit upbringing, those that actually left their homeworld would suffer from serious bouts of depression whenever they were alone for long periods of time. It is said that this sadness would affect them so deeply that many would stop eating, become overly stressed, and could die in a matter of weeks. So many Chadra-Fan weren't too picky when it came to their company, and preferred basically anyone to loneliness. They got along well with almost every race, and their live-in-the-moment attitudes led to a more positive outlook on life and an overall jovial demeanor. They were known for being so positive that even when taken off-world as slaves, the Chadra-Fan were able to see it as some sort of great adventure. Their positive attitudes also made them very good at forgiving and forgetting, which is why it is understandable that we sometimes find them with criminals. Due to their forgiving nature, it was only the most evil acts that could ever make a Chadra-Fan dislike someone. The Chadra-Fan species make a number of appearances, and in episode 1, we talked about Cabe, the Chadra-Fan who introduced all of us to her species. Cabe was an orphan adopted by a Tals, whose name was Muftak. An orphan himself, he grew up alongside those in Chalmun's Spaceport Cantina in Mos Eisley. He was just performing odd jobs to make a living, when one day he stumbled upon the orphan Cabe. He couldn't help but take her in, and she quickly became a regular at the cantina. Some Chadra-Fan also became Jedi, which was the case with Tekli, who was the apprentice to Silgal, a female Mon Calamari, and Tilly Kwa, who was a member of the Jedi High Council, 137 years after the Battle of Yavin. The most recent and notable appearances of Chadra-Fan was in the book Inferno Squad. Pikau is an elderly male of the species, and was a mechanic and member of the Dreamers, which was the successor group to Saw Gerrera's partisans. He worked with the group in Zero ABY, shortly after the Battle of Yavin, on the planet Geosin. He and Del Miko, an undercover agent for the Empire's Inferno Squad, quickly became friends, as they both spoke in the language of tech. Pikau had originally been forced to work for the Empire when they took his family hostage and threatened to kill them. Pikau agreed and offered his technical expertise to the Empire, and in taking him to a research facility, they still went ahead and killed his family only 1 hour after he was put to work. The projects that he worked on exposed him to toxic chemicals, which drastically reduced his already short life expectancy. He joined the Dreamers in hopes of helping to avenge his family, and was intent on spending the remainder of his very short life helping out the rebellion in any way that he could. In the Dreamers organization, he found a new family that helped to care for him, as the toxins still ravage his body. He oftentimes deals with bouts where he doesn't feel well, and his small, frail body is easily overworked and needs frequent rest. But even past all that, he retained a charming, inviting, and warm personality, and quickly gets Del Meeko on the particularly mysterious ancient machines that he finds on the planet Geosin. Shortpaw is another Chadra-Fan that made his debut in Star Wars Uprising. He was a junk dealer residing on the mining colony of Burn Khan during the Iron Blockade. He was outwardly known as an unassuming junk dealer, but secretly he was the leader of the Trade Spine League, an organization of smugglers and mercenaries. When Vader accidentally dropped Palpatine, an Iron Blockade was established to prevent the news of the Emperor's death from spreading. This blockade prevented Shortpaw's ships from going outside of the sector, so he hired a young smuggler to find a weak point in this blockade. With his help, Southpaw was able to locate a gap in the near-abandoned world of Matau, allowing him to send ships through and marking the beginning of a great adventure for him in Star Wars Uprising. Well, that's it for the Chadra-Fan, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind-the-scenes stuff. A lot of sources say that the Chadra-Fan evolved from rodents, but we feel that this is either inaccurate or that the classification of rodent in Star Wars must be different from what it means here on Earth. Chadra-Fan's look and a lot of their abilities are based on bats, and on our world, bats are definitely not considered rodents. In fact, they're so unique that they have a classification all of their own. And the only thing that we know about the Chadra-Fan religion is that their main, if only deity, was a big green fish. They're not too keen on describing their green fish god to a lot of outsiders, so not a lot is known about the deity itself. But there was once a reporter named Yarbuk Yem who worked for Tri-Nebulon News, and when he jokingly took the deity's name in vain, there was species-wide outrage amongst the Chadra-Fan. So that's it for the Chadra-Fan species. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to check out our social media, or ways that you can help support this channel, be sure to check out the description down below. If you want to see more, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications. But more important than all that, remember, never call a Chadra-Fan a rodent, and the Force will be with you, always.